You're jolted awake not by your alarm clock, but by a siren. Not the kind that tells you it's time for work, but the kind that shakes the walls and sends a chill down your spine. Outside, neighbors are running, phones are buzzing, and the news ticker is screaming. World War III has begun. In that moment, what's in your pocket or under your mattress suddenly matters more than anything. Cash, gold, crypto, the things we've been told are stores of value. But when the world burns, what really works? That's the question. And it's the one people in Washington, Moscow, and Beijing are quietly preparing for. Donald Trump has already made it clear. The US dollar is the backbone of American power, and protecting it is part of his wartime strategy. But Vladimir Putin is playing a different game. Russia has been stockpiling gold for years, betting that shiny metal outlasts paper promises. And then there's China, where Xi Jinping has been rolling out digital yuan experiments, wondering if crypto-style systems could bypass Western sanctions in the event of war. 3 leaders, 3 strategies, and one terrifying question for you. If the world economy collapses in the middle of global war, which one actually helps you survive? Let's pull the curtain back and step into that first chaotic hour when war breaks out. Picture yourself running to the nearest ATM. You swipe your card. The screen flickers, then goes dark. The grid is under attack. Cyber units have frozen the banks. Around you, lines form. Panic spreads. The dollar bills in your wallet. Suddenly they feel flimsy, like scraps of green paper that may or may not buy bread tomorrow. This isn't fiction. In Ukraine, when Russia invaded in 2022, banks shut down for days. People traded cigarettes, fuel, and even chocolate bars just to get through. That was just one country. Scale it up to global war, and the question gets darker. Does cash even matter? Now gold. It's always been seen as the end of the world hedge. Governments stash it in vaults because it doesn't rely on trust. It's metal you can hold, something real. Putin bet on that. Over the last decade, Russia quietly shifted its reserves out of US dollars and into gold, so sanctions wouldn't crush the Kremlin's war machine. But let's get real. In your basement, are you going to trade a gold coin for a bottle of water? Are you going to shave off flakes to pay for bread? Gold might make sense for nations, but for civilians caught in the rubble, it's a different story. And then there's crypto, the technology that was supposed to free us from governments. In theory, Bitcoin is the perfect wartime money, borderless, digital, impossible to freeze. But here's the catch. When the power grid collapses, when the internet is jammed by cyber warfare, your digital wallet is just numbers on a dead screen. Unless you already planned ahead, unless you have offline access, that magic coin in the cloud won't buy you dinner. So let's slow down, breathe, and peel this apart layer by layer. Trump is betting on the US dollar, backed not by gold, but by American military dominance. As long as American aircraft carriers sail and US bases circle the globe, the dollar has weight. But if missiles fly and supply chains snap, the dollar's promise starts to wobble. In his speeches, Trump insists the dollar is untouchable. But ask yourself, what happens if China and Russia create a parallel system, trading oil, wheat, and weapons outside of dollars? What happens when countries desperate for food don't care about Washington's currency rules anymore? Putin's plan is simpler. Gold in vaults, real reserves, a war chest that isn't controlled by Wall Street. But again, imagine yourself in Moscow, or in some small Russian town when the missiles fall. Are you holding bars of gold? Or are you standing in line for bread, with rubles that no one wants? The Kremlin might survive with gold, but does that help the people? She's playing the long game. China has been testing state-controlled digital currencies, a kind of crypto that isn't free at all. It's tightly monitored. The idea is, in a crisis, they can bypass the US-led financial system instantly. No SWIFT codes, no sanctions, just a closed loop of digital yuan tied to Chinese supply chains. If war erupts, Xi doesn't want to rely on dollars or gold. He wants control of digital survival money. But again, does that help you, the person in the street? Or does it just mean Beijing can track and ration everything you buy? This is where it gets cinematic. Picture a supermarket in New York. Shelves half empty, lights flickering, people at the counter holding out credit cards that no longer swipe. A man pulls out cash, a wad of bills, but the cashier shakes her head. They don't know what those bills are worth anymore. Someone else slides over a gold chain. Eyes widen. It's accepted because it's something real, something you can melt. Then another person pulls out a USB stick with Bitcoin on it, but there's no connection, no way to prove it's real, no way to transfer. In that room, right there, you see the future play out. Money only works if people trust it in the moment. And that's the real secret behind Trump's dollar, Putin's gold, Xi's crypto. It's not the material, it's the trust, the belief that tomorrow, someone else will take it. World War III threatens to burn that trust to the ground. And if it does, what takes its place? Some analysts whisper that the first real currency of a global war won't be paper, metal, or code. It'll be food, fuel, antibiotics, things that keep people alive. That's what soldiers in Iraq learned when US cash was worthless in villages that wanted medicine. That's what Ukrainians saw when eggs and bread were more valuable than bank transfers. In the rubble of global war, maybe the only real currency is survival itself. Still, governments are playing their games. Trump pushes the dollar like it's a weapon. Putin hoards gold like it's his shield. Xi programs crypto like it's his net. But none of them, none, can guarantee what happens when civilians wake up to sirens, reach for their wallets, and realize the world they trusted is gone. So where does that leave you? That's the haunting question. Do you hide dollars under the mattress? Do you buy gold bars and hope they matter? Do you stack crypto and pray the grid survives? Or do you stockpile canned food, fuel, and medicine, betting that the new currency of war will be survival itself? Because when the sirens blare and the world tilts into chaos, it won't be about investments or markets or national strategies. It'll be about the one thing that has always decided survival, what you can trade, right here, right now, when the bombs fall. And that's the story no one wants to say out loud. Trump, Putin, Xi, they're playing a chess game with currencies and reserves. But you, the civilian, the one caught in the middle, you're just hoping that whatever you have in your pocket actually matters when World War III finally comes. Picture this. It's day 2 of global war. But for you, it still feels like the first hour that never ends. The sirens may have stopped for a moment, but the echo is still in your head. You're holding what you thought would save you, cash, gold, maybe a hard drive with crypto keys. But every minute reveals the same truth. Survival money isn't what you imagined. On the streets of Washington, New York, Berlin, and even Moscow, panic economies are already forming. President Donald Trump, in his televised address, urges calm, reminding Americans that the US dollar is still the most trusted currency in the world. He frames it as a weapon, America's greatest shield against chaos. But the images scrolling across the screen show a different story. Supermarkets overwhelmed, banks shuttered, and lines at gas stations stretching for blocks. People aren't asking about the Federal Reserve. They're asking how much a gallon of water is worth when trucks stop delivering. In Moscow, Vladimir Putin is making a different move. Russian state media broadcasts footage of gold reserves locked in vaults, a spectacle meant to project power. The Kremlin declares the ruble will be backed by gold, promising stability. But if you zoom into the streets, the average Russian isn't holding gold bars. They're clutching ration cards, scrambling for bread. On the ground, the gold standard means nothing unless it buys food. Meanwhile, Xi Jinping is pushing something entirely different. In Beijing, citizens are told that the digital yuan is fully operational and ready to protect the people from financial collapse. Phones light up with QR codes tied directly to the state supply chain. In theory, that's power. Every purchase tracked, every transaction controlled, food and medicine rationed digitally. But the whispers in back alleys suggest a darker reality. If the state cuts you off, your survival money vanishes instantly. This is where the story shifts from governments to civilians. Because when war ignites, money becomes less about what it's made of, paper, metal, or code, and more about what you can actually trade. And what people start trading first isn't currency at all. Take Ukraine, for example. When the invasion began in 2022, bank cards froze. ATMs ran dry. In those early days, survival wasn't about cash. It was about barter. Gasoline for bread, cigarettes for medicine. That's the raw truth of a war economy. What matters is what keeps people alive. And in a global conflict, with borders sealed and supply chains shattered, the same dynamic would play out everywhere. Now imagine yourself in this setting. You've got dollars under your mattress, maybe a few gold coins, and some Bitcoin saved up. But your neighbor has something else, clean water. Another has canned food. Another has antibiotics. Suddenly, they hold the real wealth. You can offer a stack of $100 bills, but will they take it? Or will they laugh and point to the bread in their hands? This isn't just speculation. It's how survival economies always emerge. In World War II, cigarettes became the unofficial currency in Europe, accepted more widely than cash. In Iraq, American soldiers learned that basic goods, soap, fuel, food, were more valuable than the local dinar. In Venezuela's collapse, medicine and diapers outpaced currency. That's the brutal law of survival markets. When systems fail, the economy resets to the basics. But let's go bigger. Trump's America is clinging to the dollar because it's not just currency. It's geopolitical leverage. As long as oil and global trade flow through dollars, the U.S. still holds the world's economic choke point. But what if war snaps that system? What if nations desperate for survival start trading outside the dollar, using gold or digital currencies backed by China? That's not just financial collapse. That's the U.S. losing its strongest weapon without a shot being fired. In Putin's Russia, gold gives the Kremlin breathing room. It allows him to buy what sanctions cut off: fuel, weapons, wheat, from nations willing to ignore Western pressure. But again, this is a game for governments, not people. Gold won't heat a home when the gas is cut. Gold won't keep food from spoiling when the power grid is gone. In Xi's China, the digital yuan is both salvation and a trap. On one hand, it gives Beijing the ability to move fast, to bypass Western sanctions and keep the economy running internally. On the other, it means every citizen's survival is at the mercy of state control. No rebellion, no underground market can function if the state cuts off your digital lifeline. In that sense, digital money could be the most terrifying wartime weapon of all, not against enemies, but against your own people. So let's zoom into the human perspective again. Imagine a family in New York. They've stocked up on food, some cash, maybe even a little gold. But 3 weeks into the war, their supplies dwindle. Outside, a black market is formed. A bottle of water costs more than a $100 bill. A can of beans can trade for a pack of batteries. Antibiotics are worth their weight in gold, literally. And in that moment, family realizes survival currency isn't in vaults, banks, or digital ledgers. It's in basements, pantries, and backpacks. This is why war reshapes value itself. Trump, Putin, and Xi may argue over dollars, gold, and crypto. But for civilians, the truth is simpler. The real economy is survival. And survival is about immediate, tangible needs. That's why analysts warn that in the first month of World War III, black markets would explode worldwide. Cities would fracture into microeconomies, each with its own rules. Some places might accept cash, others gold, others cigarettes or fuel. But all of it would be unstable, shifting hour by hour. And here's the most chilling part. War economies breed power for those who control the basics. The person with a fuel truck becomes a king. The person with a warehouse of food becomes a governor. In these microeconomies, local warlords rise while national governments struggle to keep order. That's how societies fracture. And that's how civilians, just like you, find themselves trapped in a game where the currency is survival and the cost is trust. So ask yourself, in that moment, in that chaos, what will you have in your pocket? Will it be paper the government swears is powerful? Will it be a coin the world no longer cares about? Will it be numbers on a dead screen? Or will it be the one thing no one can argue with, food, fuel, medicine? Because in the rubble of World War III, that's the currency that always wins. The air is heavy with silence, but it isn't peace. It's the kind of silence that follows the crash of everything familiar. Stores are locked, Banks are frozen. ATMs display blank screens, and the hum of the digital world has gone dark. You step outside with a pocket full of paper money, but suddenly you realize it's nothing more than paper. No one wants it. The dollar, the euro, the ruble, the yuan, all the big names that once ruled global markets are now as worthless as yesterday's newspaper. The economy hasn't just collapsed, it's evaporated. And in this new reality, the question becomes unavoidable. What still holds value when the very definition of value has been shattered? Donald Trump, still leading the United States in 2025, had warned Americans during his campaign speeches and again in his presidential briefings. The war of missiles will be brutal, but the war of money will be even more devastating. He emphasized that Russia under Vladimir Putin, China under Xi Jinping, and even Iran under Ayatollah Khamenei had been preparing for years to weaponize the collapse of currencies, to leave ordinary civilians scrambling. And now the test has arrived. You try to make a trade with someone down the street, cash in exchange for a can of food. They laugh, wave you off, and point to a glinting piece of metal in their pocket. A gold coin, small, but suddenly immense in power. Gold has returned as the ancient king of value, the one thing people trust across borders and across centuries. But you quickly discover another truth. Gold might buy you loyalty, but it cannot buy you speed. You can't eat it. You can't carry enough of it without painting a target on your back. And when bombs fall, weight is the enemy. Meanwhile, deep beneath bunkers and far away on secure servers, another fight is playing out. Crypto. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and dozens of digital currencies surge in conversation, though the networks flicker under constant cyberattacks. Putin's covert cyber units push waves of hacks against Western crypto exchanges, while Xi's government experiments with controlling the digital yuan as a wartime tool. And yet, despite outages, crypto manages to survive in pockets. Encrypted wallets traded offline, flash drives smuggled across borders, codes memorized and written on scraps of paper. For those who prepared early, crypto isn't just money, it's escape. A man at the edge of a refugee convoy whispers, "I bought my way onto this truck with a single Bitcoin." Cash couldn't have done that. Gold couldn't have done it quickly enough. But then comes the third contender, resources themselves. Food, medicine, batteries, clean water. The currencies that were never listed on a stock exchange, but now determine life and death more than any coin or digital key. A mother clutching her child isn't asking for dollars, crypto, or gold. She's asking if anyone has antibiotics. In this hour, barter takes over, and those with survival foresight, the ones who stocked fuel, food, and medicine, have suddenly become the new bankers of a shattered world. Yet the global leaders know this chaos cannot last forever. Donald Trump, speaking from Washington, insists that the U.S. will stabilize with both physical gold reserves and a new digital backbone. He proposes what some call the Trump Standard, a hybrid of gold-backed currency and blockchain verification, meant to reassure Americans that the dollar won't disappear forever. Putin mocks the idea, claiming Russia's vaults of gold and energy supplies give Moscow the upper hand. Xi, confident as ever, pushes China's tightly controlled digital yuan across Asia and Africa, using it as both leverage and lifeline. And so, civilians are caught in the crossfire of financial warfare, staring at coins, codes, and cans of beans, wondering which one actually keeps them alive. Imagine now, a family inside their basement shelter. They count their options. A stack of cash worth nothing. 2 gold coins worth everything but dangerous to reveal. A USB drive containing crypto they can't access until the power grid flickers back to life. And a few cans of food that, for now, might as well be priceless. The father says, "We trade the food and we die of hunger. We trade the gold and we get robbed. We wait for crypto and we may never get online again." And the silence that follows tells the truth. There's no perfect solution. In the fog of World War III, money is no longer trust. It's only risk. Outside, global markets don't just crash, they vanish. Wall Street is silent, the Shanghai exchange abandoned, Moscow's stock tickers frozen. The financial heart of the world has flatlined. And yet, across small communities, Improvised economies rise. A mechanic fixes a generator in exchange for canned meat. A teacher gives lessons in exchange for medicine. A soldier takes gold, but only because he knows someone else will take it from him tomorrow. In this environment, survival is not about wealth, it's about leverage. Donald Trump continues to rally Americans, promising that resilience and innovation will rebuild trust faster than Putin and Xi expect. He urges the use of both gold and crypto as anchors, while insisting that barter economies will stabilize through US-led relief corridors. Putin counters with fiery speeches declaring that Western currencies are dead relics, while Russia's resources and gold reserves make it unbreakable. She moves silently, offering deals to nations desperate for stability, pulling them into Beijing's orbit with the promise of food and digital lifelines. The battlefield of wealth becomes as dangerous as the battlefield of weapons. And for civilians, the truth is brutal. The money in your wallet, the gold in your drawer, the crypto in your phone, all of it matters, but none of it is invincible. In World War III, what actually works depends on timing, place, and sheer luck. Gold works when trust exists. Crypto works when networks breathe. Resources work when nothing else matters. And for the first time in centuries, the question of money is no longer about banks, or governments, or markets. It's about survival itself. So as the world waits in dread, with missiles locked and leaders clashing, the real question isn't just who wins the war of armies. It's who wins the war of money. And when the sirens fade, when the bombs stop falling, when people crawl out from shelters with trembling hands, what will they reach for first? Paper? Metal? Code? Or simply a bottle of clean water? In the silence of destruction, the answer may define the century.